On the Road with Kelli and Bob is brought to you by Mueller Metal Roofs and Buildings. Made in America, made to last. Coming up on this episode...
We're making about 20,000 pounds of salt a year here, and that's turned into different products.
Hi, we're Kelli
and Bob Phillips, and we're on the perpetual road trip of America's back roads,
where the journey is always the destination. Hi, and thanks for joining us for this edition of On the Road with Kelli and Bob. I'm Kelli Phillips.
And I'm Bob Phillips. Okay, Kelli, you've heard the old saying, sweet can't be beat, but salt has no fault, right?
I can honestly say I've never heard of that in my entire life.
Okay. I might have just made that up a minute ago.
Really?
But it's true. Most humans love sweet things, but we absolutely cannot survive without salt. It's one of those essentials to life. It's so important that early people used to pick where they would live, at least based partly on the availability of salt in that area. And it's that premise that took us recently to Charleston, West Virginia.
If you think about what life would be like without a refrigerator, salt would be very, very important to preserve your food, to make cheese, to pickle your vegetables and fruits, and to preserve your meats. You can't survive without salt. And our ancestors and people in the late 1700s, early 1800s found it because it was coming up in springs. It was being pushed to the surface. So you had a lot of large animals here licking the salt springs. Native Americans came and hunted and gathered salt for themselves. And then as the European settlers moved west across the Allegheny Mountains, they found this really valuable source of salt. I grew up here in the Kanawha Valley in Charleston, West Virginia. My family's been here for 7 generations. And so I was born and raised here and have a lot of family roots here, obviously.
Those family roots run deep here in the Appalachian Mountains of West Virginia, where the presence of 6 generations of Nancy Brunn's family can still be felt.
So I went to elementary school and middle school here, and then went away to boarding school and college, and then went to culinary school, which started me down the road of food.
You were at the Culinary School of Vermont, were you not?
I was, New England Culinary Institute. I grew up in a family where both my parents were great cooks, and we cooked a lot as children together, and it was just always a love of mine. And after I graduated from college, I wasn't really sure where I was going to go, but I had this love of food, so I decided to pursue that, and spent 20 plus years in the food industry before coming back home to Charleston and Malden to start the Saltworks.
The Saltworks. Growing up, Nancy had heard rumblings about how her family had once produced salt. But, that was a long time ago and certainly wasn't going on now. Then Nancy's husband at the time, who was pursuing a master's degree in American history, told her that salt thing was a much bigger deal than she had ever imagined.
I was kind of looking for the next chapter of my life, and he went off to get his master's in American history, and he's been very interested in salt as a topic and a subject where people and cultures make decisions that impact history. So he did a lot of research, and he said, your family was really big in the salt business. And I'm like, well, I knew they made salt, but it wasn't going on when I was growing up, so we didn't really talk about it. I was just fascinated with different textures and flavors and mineral contents and how they interacted with food. And so when he mentioned that and I started digging into it, I was like, I have to make salt. It was like this inner drive in me I couldn't ignore. So I came home and talked to my brother and said, let's make salt.
It all started when William Dickinson of Bedford County, Virginia, heard that people were boiling brine from springs on the far side of the Allegheny Mountains in what is now West Virginia. He and his brother-in-law invested in salt properties along the Kanawha River, and by 1817 turned the area around the town of Malden into the salt-making capital of the East.
They actually hollowed out sycamore trees, and they would drive them into the springs, put a man down in it with a bucket and a shovel, and that's how they'd case the well, with a hollow tree trunk. So they would only get maybe 30 or 40 feet at that point through the spring, but then as they got better at it, they developed technology to get through bedrock and get into where the really salty brine was.
Nancy, you said something about sea salt, and we're in West Virginia. We're landlocked, if you haven't looked around. Where are you getting sea salt?
You're right. So we have to dig for our oceans here in West Virginia. So we're on top of the ancient Iapetus Ocean. It's one of the Earth's earliest oceans, and it's where Pangea formed. So all the continents came together there. When they broke back apart, they took remnants of this ancient sea with them. So it's underground, and it's been redissolved by a freshwater aquifer. So I think of it as running under sort of like a salty river. So it's between 300 and 1,700 feet deep. The interesting thing is that before the Revolution, all salt that came to the colonies came from England. There was no salt production here. So of course when we revolted, the English were like, we're not going to send you more salt.
We're cutting off your salt.
You're done.
Right, and it was...
You'll do what we say or we're going to cut your salt off.
Right. So in the late 1700s, early 1800s, people were looking for that opportunity, and this area ended up growing to be the largest salt production in the country.
Today, Nancy and her brother, Louis Payne, have more than revived the salt-producing business started by their ancestors more than 200 years ago. They make salt for all kinds of things.
This is our burnt caramel sauce with a little bit of our finishing salt on it, so you'll get that combination.
Too bad this is only a one-person taste.
Rub it in.
Ooh, that's really good.
Yep, just sugar, cream, and butter, and then that salt on there.
That little salt just to finish it out.
Yeah, that gives you the texture. So does that salt taste different to you?
Yes, absolutely. Sea salt is real crunchy. This is, it's light. Mm-hmm. And it dissolves a lot better.
What's the best thing that I can do with your salt that I'm really going to taste the difference?
I think using our plain finishing salt on your food, whether it's at breakfast on your eggs in the morning, or, say you've grilled a steak and you just put a little bit of our salt on that, it brings out the flavor and you get that crunch and you get that experience, and then you're probably never going to go back.
And right here, on the same property where their family started this business, J.Q. Dickinson Salt is thriving, in demand, and setting new standards. It's been chosen best salt in the world and is used by countless chefs to make their signature dishes taste better, and by home cooks who want that little something extra for their families.
But for Nancy Bruns, the best thing of all is to carry on a family tradition, a passion that runs 7 generations deep here in the Appalachian Mountains of West Virginia.
It's been such an amazing journey, just personally, not necessarily financially and successfully that way, but just to be on this land where 7 generations of my family have worked and had challenges, and wars were fought and they rebuilt, and to come here every day is a really special thing, and I can feel those ancestors kind of looking over my shoulder.
looking over her shoulder. Indeed, there has to be a strong feeling of responsibility when you're carrying on a family name like that.
Yeah, Nancy mentioned earlier that she called her brother Louis and said, "Let's make salt." We wondered how he reacted to that. Was it an easy sell for him?
Not necessarily. He's like, doesn't Morton's do that?
Well, that's a good question, because I think most people would think salt is salt is salt. Is it not?
It is not. It is not. Standard table salt that you buy in a grocery store is almost pure sodium chloride, whereas our salt is a natural sea salt, and it has a lot of other minerals in it. So our salt has 6% trace minerals. And Morton salt also puts an anti-caking agent in their salt, which really isn't, salt draws moisture. That's its natural property. And so it's nice that when it rains it pours, but it's not really something you want in your food. The industry was at its height in the 1830s, 40s, and 50s. Then you had a flood here. The Kanawha River flooded to 16 feet above flood stage, so that took out a lot of the Saltworks. At the same time, Chicago was starting to grow up as the meat packing center of the country. The country had expanded west, and Chicago is still very important for meat packing today. And then the Civil War. So this was Virginia. This area was providing salt to the Confederacy, so the Union Army came in and destroyed salt production. Salt was an important war commodity.
Once again, we're going to cut off your salt if you don't do what we say.
Exactly. It was an industry that was built on the backs of slaves. So we are on the Dickinson family farm, and this particular area is called Terra Salis, salt of the earth. So my cousins, after the salt industry shut down, they built a landscape design center here. So that's the building we're in now. And so we were able to come in with them, and they had some hoop houses that they weren't using. So we said, hey, can we just try out this idea and see how we do? And as we grew, they decided that they wanted to shut down the landscape business. So we've taken over the whole thing. So we have a shop here, we've built a production house, we have 5 evaporation and crystallization buildings. We do events here as well. So we do a lot of weddings, and we do a lot of chef dinners and private events as well, fundraisers, and whatever anybody wants to do and come out here.
So your family initially thought you were crazy. What do they think now?
They think I'm pretty smart. J.Q. Dickinson Salt-Works is the name of the business, and that's John Quincy Dickinson, who is the grandson of William Dickinson, who was the first Dickinson to come to the Kanawha Valley. So we have our wholesale customers, our retailers and restaurants all around the country. We're in about 45 states. There are different saturation in different states. Most Mid-Atlantic is our main pocket of business, but we're in California and Oregon and Washington State and different places. And then we have a website that we ship direct to consumer, and we ship those gifts to people all over the world. It's a busy place. So we're making about 20,000 pounds of salt a year here, and that's turned into different products, but then we ship it on out.
So how does one in modern times resurrect the salt production that was here for so long? How'd you do this?
Well, there's no book, Salt Making for Dummies from an ancient sea. But
you could write one though now.
Well, we knew that if we could put a new well in, if we could draw that salt water up and you dehydrate it or evaporate it, you're going to get salt. I mean, that's just, just like if you're at the ocean, you come out of the ocean, the seawater dries on your body and you get a little crusty, right? So we knew we'd get salt, but the process became more complicated. There's a lot of iron in the brine, so early on it was known as Great Kanawha Red Salt because of that iron, but that makes it very metallic tasting, which isn't necessarily attractive or delicious. So we learned to settle that iron, let it drop to the bottom of our tanks, and then we feed clear brine into our beds, and then we evaporate that for a while, and then we have a calcium carbonate precipitates out, so we need to filter that out. And then we move the brine to crystallization. So it took us about 6 months of kind of fiddling around with it till we got a product that we thought tasted good. But then over the past 12 years into this now, I would say probably 4 years into it, we got our groove and kind of were like, okay, we think we got this totally figured out.
It sounds like a lot of very labor-intensive science is involved in this.
It is. And we actually ended up hiring an intern from a local University of Charleston who's a chemistry student. And he came and worked with us, and he set it up like a lab, and different processes we were testing out and which tasted better, and the depth of the brine, and how long we left it in certain places. So he was a big help.
As a former chef, or actually once a chef, always a chef, I think, but as a chef, what did you think of your salt once you got it where you wanted it?
I thought it was amazing. I expected it to taste good, but I didn't expect it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is really good.
Really?
It has a really bright, bold flavor, but it finishes almost on a sweet note. And people actually sort of snack on it. They love the flavor of it.
What makes yours so different?
So the texture is a little different because we are evaporating it very slowly. And so it's a slightly crunchy texture, but it's a soft crunch. It's not like biting into rock salt, which is a mined salt. And it's not a flake salt like people might be familiar with Malden, England salt, the like pyramidal shaped, which are very thin. And then you have the flavor. So those minerals that are here are different than minerals you're going to find in Atlantic salt or Mediterranean salt or Pacific salt or Black Sea salt. So that gives it a very unique flavor. And it's very white, it's beautiful, and then we add a lot of other flavors to it too. So we have our plain salts, but then we do 10 other flavors.
Flavors? Explain that. What do you mean?
So we have 2 smoked salts that we have a big smoker, and we put the salt in there, and we use different woods. So we'll use either apple wood, or we have bourbon barrel smoked salt, where we use local bourbon barrels to smoke it. And then we do ramp salt. Ramps are a native wild mountain onion. They should be starting to come up here pretty soon. But they're a garlicky, oniony flavor, so we dehydrate those and mix them into salt. We put ghost peppers in it for a little spice.
A little spice?
With
Just a little.
Ghost pepper?
A little ghost pepper goes a long way.
Yes, it does.
We're from Texas. We know about peppers. And the ghost pepper is one you got to be careful with. So is this stuff hot? Is it hot salt?
It's I wouldn't call it hot. It's got just a touch of a kick to it. I mean, great on like potatoes, eggs.
Oh.
Yeah, it's nice.
What all can you do with your salt? You can do more than just cook with it.
Yes, so we have our finishing salts are mostly what I was just talking about there. We do have our popcorn salt is our finest crystal. It's also cooking salt. It's very, very fine. It clings well to popcorn, but it's also really good for baking or in instances where you want it to dissolve. You don't want the texture. And then we have a grinding salt where it goes in a salt grinder, so people that like to have that physical interaction. But then we also have some bath products. So we do salt scrubs and bath soaks with different herbs and essential oils and things like that. Because salt is it's good for your skin.
I was touring Israel a few years ago and went to the Dead Sea and was turned on to the Dead Sea salt. Compare that to what the products you're making.
Well, it's a similar approach. The Dead Sea is the saltiest sea in the world. The salinity level is so high, but it also has very high mineral content of other things in there, which make it very good for your body. So this is our shop. We'll go over here first to our salt cabinet. We have our finishing salts. We have our Cocktail salts. Bloody Mary salt is one of our best-selling products. It's our applewood smoked salt mixed with dried chilies, celery seed, and garlic. And it's great on a rim of a Bloody Mary, but also really good to season. Like, I love it rubbed into a chicken before I roast it, or to throw it on roasted potatoes. Really, really good. So we do a spice blends that aren't as salt forward, they're more spice forward. So we have those, and then our caramel sauces here.
There are different caramel sauces?
There are. So our burnt caramel sauce is the plain one, and it's just organic sugar, cream, and butter, and we do burn the sugar so it smokes, and it gives it a nuttiness. Then we have a bourbon caramel made with West Virginia bourbon, a dark chocolate caramel, and a spicy dark chocolate caramel, which has just a hint of ghost pepper in it too. So it's really good on ice cream. So you get that cool ice cream and then that heat of the ghost pepper. So here are our bath products. These are our salt scrubs for the shower. Invigorating, refreshing, and calming, depending on the different essential oil that's used in there. And then these are our bath salt soaks. Soothing, relaxing, and hydrating. We just launched that this fall, so it's brand new. But we've worked with this company for a long time, Brookstone Soaps, and they've used our salt in their soaps for exfoliating.
So here we have the black raspberry vanilla exfoliating salt bar.
And then they have different scents of soap, and then their body butter, they put our nagari in that, so you can put the lotion on your body, and then it also has those great minerals in it for your skin. Salt products for the home and bath are very, very popular.
Yeah.
You took a kind of a leap of faith to do something like this. This is a lot more than just, I'm going to open up a little boutique and I got to buy some stuff and stock my shop. This was a lot more than that. Do you have any kind of advice you'd give to somebody that wants to take a leap of faith in their life?
I get asked that a lot about, because I think I'm kind of a serial entrepreneur and I start other businesses. But I think, one, you have to do your homework, do your business plan, do your pro forma, and see how the cash is going to flow. And of course, it never works out like it is on paper. There are always changes, but and find mentors that have expertise where you need it. We partnered with a local engineering and geological company just so we would understand the geology, and they helped us with the well. And so you have to find people that can fill in the gaps for you. My brother wanted to rename the company Trial and Error for a while because that's
what it felt like.
That's what it felt like. Yeah, it was constant trial and error. But I think you have to be willing to take that leap, and if you have a passion for it, and I think not looking for the quick money. You've got to have the passion and want to build something that's important to you. So you show up every day and enjoy it. So.
Are there other chefs beside yourself out there who they just wouldn't cook without your salt?
Yeah, I have quite a few chefs that we ship big batches of salt to. Sean Brock, he's in Tennessee now, so he's a pretty well-known chef, and he tasted it. He was one of my kind of market studies when I started, and so I sent him some, and he called me back and he said, I'll take a truckload. And I'm like, well, I've only got 50 pounds right now, but he buys it regularly for his restaurant Audrey in Nashville. Spike Garrity, who's in Baltimore, Woodbury Kitchen and Artifact Coffee. We just shipped him a big load. And then I have several local chefs here that use nothing but our salt, and was actually used at the French Laundry in California for a while. We have chefs all over the place using it.
You want it to get bigger?
I would say that we are probably reaching max capacity right now. We built a new sun house last year to increase our production, and I think I'm going to hold there. We're looking at exporting. I'm looking at Australia. I got a grant to do a market study about what countries would be most likely to want our salt, and Australia is one of them, so I'm working with a team at Commercial Service about that. I feel like we're at a really good spot, and we can still do some value-added products, like we work with a peanut grower in Virginia, so we have salted peanuts, and we make caramel sauces because salted caramel is so good, and then we work with other, you can see in our shop, we have other Appalachian products, so it's important to us to be part of a sustainable economic community, so we're supporting our region as well as promoting our products, but it goes hand in hand with other craftspeople and other artisans and food producers.
Why is that
use ours.
important to you?
Well, because I think we're in Appalachia, we've struggled a lot with different things, and the change of, from the coal industry, which used to be 80% of the economy here, is now down to 20%. And so there's been a struggle to find new outlets for driving the economy.
Tell us about Appalachia.
The beauty of it, for one, is just spectacular, the Appalachian Mountains. And then you have great culture here, music and crafts and the food culture. And because there have been so many people here for multi-generations, you get these stories passed down, and you have this the rich culture and the rich history of what people's families have done for years. And it's important to hold on to that. I think a lot of places you don't have that history, or you don't feel that when you go to an area. It's important to us here to be on this property that we've owned for 200 years to keep that history alive. And May 17th we'll have our 7th annual Salt Fest. We have lectures, we have craftspeople come with food, music, different local Appalachian bands, and so it's really fun day, and it kind of keeps things going. And we take people to the other side of the farm where the old Saltworks was to show them the old furnace, which is in disrepair, and we have a little museum that my brother's working on, and so they can see the history of it.
It's really a rich culture here, isn't it?
Very. I mean, it all started with salt in this area, not with coal. They used timber first to boil down the brine, and then they ran out of trees close by, so they found that these mountains were rich with coal. So they put punch mines into the mountains, kind of behind me over here. And they brought coal over, and they stoked furnaces with coal. And so that's when it was discovered here and how rich it was.
Your very first ancestor that was here on this property, what would they think about what you're doing now?
They'd probably look at me and say I'm a little crazy for doing solar evaporation instead of boiling it down, that I'm taking way too long, but it's much cleaner product. I mean, hopefully they would be proud and to see what we've done and brought it back, and that we celebrate the history of our ancestors and how hard they worked to make it work. And they had a lot of challenges. I mean, challenges that we can't even grasp today. We would have run the other way, to hollow out trees. And, it took them 2 years just to get a well in. It took us 10 days, and I was frustrated. Why is this taking so long? So...
They had more patience, is that what you're saying?
I think they had patience, they had perseverance, and they had grit. We say in Appalachia, people have grit here.
That's got to feel really good that you can trace your roots right here.
Literally.
Yes.
Yes.
And right here in the USA, you can trace your roots back 7 generations back to what you're doing today. What does that feel like?
It feels like my stars are aligned. I'm in the right place. Sometimes in life you feel like, I don't feel quite right. Maybe I need to pursue something different. But, when I come here, I'm like, this is exactly what I was meant to be doing. So as they say, salt runs in my blood.
And we want to thank you again for joining us this week for On the Road with Kelli and Bob. Don't forget, new episodes drop every week. What you can do is you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and even our YouTube page. And don't forget, you can download the free Audacy app and listen anytime, anywhere.